Welcome to the Val Valley Model Railroad. My name is Sean Moore, and I invite you to the Val Valley Layout Tour 2019. In this video series, you will be taken on a video journey through my model railroad. First, we will view each section through the eyes of a visiting rail fan. Then, we will step back and have a look at each section of the layout from a modeler's perspective. We will produce an episode about every 2 to 3 weeks. Each episode will cover 2 or so sections of the layout. Episodes. Episode 1, Intro, followed by the Pearson City and Pierson Yard. In Episode 2, we'll look at Pierson Diesel Shops, the Pierson Roundhouse. Then, moving along to Episode 3, we'll be visiting the Val Valley's Valley and Stillwater's Maintenance of Way Yard. Then in Episode 4, we'll make it to Stillwater and on to Wallace Junction. Then, in Episode 5, we'll be traveling up the branch line and we'll stop at Billings, then Sycamoose. And then come Episode 6, we'll be taking a look at the town of Wilson. And finally, the end of the branch line, the coal fields of Sutton. And then our last episode is titled Electric, where I will discuss all kinds of electrical systems that we're using on the layout that may be interesting, from the signal systems to the crossing gates to why I wired my layout as if it was a DC layout, even though I knew I was going to make it DCC. The history of the Val Valley Model Railroad. In the beginning. Where have I heard that one before? Starting to sound like a Battlestar Galactica rerun. Anyway, in the beginning stages of the designing of my model railroad, I watched many YouTube videos. I hit the model railroad magazines, and shortly I came into a conundrum of biblical proportions. I found I have a fondness for short line railroads that have had their good years and their bad years. I found I wanted to model a short line railroad of my own name, my own ideas. But then I was also deep-rooted Norfolk Southern man as well. So after some time, thought, I developed a history for my little railroad. This allowed me to have both my little short line and the Norfolk Southern. The Val Valley Model Railroad is a snapshot in time, being a medium-sized railroad that has just been purchased by the Norfolk Southern. This gives me the opportunity to have a lot of older Norfolk and Western equipment as well as Norfolk Southern equipment hanging around, and still some odds and ends from the Val Valley. So you may be asking how the more modern equipment has snuck in. Well, rumors have it that there is a rift in time at one of the ends of the yard tracks. So there's a strong chance you might find some very modern power wandering around on the Val Valley. Excitement in mysterious names and places from a young mind. When I was but a young child, my mother took me to a sitter. It was not a babysitter now, mind you. It was a sitter. This is what I would tell you back in the day. Every day before my mother went to work, she took me to the sitters. Glad we got that little thing cleared up there. Each day, on the way to and back home from the sitters, we passed over a single railroad crossing. Every time we passed over the crossing, I would strain to look down the tracks in hopes to get a glimpse of one of them there magical trains. The mysteries of what was down the tracks just beyond the bend. Both the magical railroad crossing and the sitters was in a small town just outside of Wesleyville, PA, really close to Erie, called Val Valley. That's Bell with a B. But as a kid, somehow I got it in my little mind that it was Val, as in V as in Victor, Val Valley. These are the memories that came back to me one night when I had just finished some of the bench work for my new model railroad. The smell of fresh cut plywood and paint brought a level of excitement back that I had not felt in so many years. Suddenly, I was a tiny kid in my mother's car going over that railroad crossing once again, looking down the tracks again, straining to see what I could see. The allure, the excitement of what was around that next curve. I wanted my new model railroad to bring back that excitement every time I walked into the room. So I named my model railroad the Val Valley with a V, in honor of those wonderful memories from childhood. A quick look at the layout. The layout room is 12 foot by 9 foot with a 4 foot by 2.5 foot tail that used to be a stairway that we now use for the main yard. There are 4 levels. The layout has a 24-foot double-track main line on its first level. The branch line works its way up from the first level through each of the 4 levels to a maximum height of 22 inches above the first level. This has, at its greatest point, a 4% grade. There are 7 towns on the layout. The branch line is approximately 50 feet long and has 1 passing siding. The layout was wired as if it were DC, with separate blocks for the main line and for within the yards. The layout runs on MRC's Prodigy Advanced DCC system with an 8 amp booster. There is a complete scratch-built signal system on both the main line and the branch line. Alright, now we're going to take a look at Pearson City from a modeler's point of view. You know, certain facts and stuff like that. One of the things that I've been trying to stress to other modelers is not to think that you have to have the whole building in a scene. And this is a perfect example. Okay, my station could have been a lot bigger. It is kit bashed, you know, and the station is probably only 2¼ inches wide right here. I know it gets a lot deeper as we go back, but that's actually the attic door right behind here, and this space we figured is 14 inches deep here at the road. It's only 14 inches deep here, and of course it's wider here, but not much scenery. And another way to look at this is how I incorporated the shopping center. It's cut really weirdly, so it'll fit around the door casing frame. Now, if you don't believe me that that's an attic door, we'll just look up and, yeah, there it is. There's Sycamoose. We're going to talk about that in another episode. But, so when you're looking at a space, buildings don't have to all be there, whether you're doing a modular, a layout like mine. You know, you might have only 2 inches of the building thickness, like I did here. And that could have been on the inside of an aisle. And had that building been on this side of the aisle, I would have left the back completely off so you could see into it, to all the wonderful details that are in there. I like to detail my buildings. So think out of the box, and remember, you can cut that box down too. You know, even water tower. I mean, if you wanted, if we had a little more room right here and I wanted a water tower, I could do a sliver of it. Some people say they don't like to see buildings cut like that, but they're doing the cookie cutter thing on the land where their layout really ends. So your mind is already filling in and understanding why this is here, and most of us will understand why a building's been cut. So we've looked at a lot of the pictures. The only thing we really haven't covered yet is Pierson Power here in Pearson City. Now this is the dump house for the power plant. As you saw in the video, we're shoving coal cars in and out of it, and it's nowhere near finished. It helps hide a lot of the secrets here in Pearson City. There's a tunnel porthole that you can't really see back here because of the lighting, that where the 2 Amtrak tracks go back. And what they're all hiding is this long sliver here. Now this up here will be a power plant at some point. This is where the front wall will be. We'll go take a real quick look at some pictures of the power plant that is sitting downstairs on my workbench as we speak. Okay, now we're back looking at where the power plant's going to sit. And one of the things I'm trying to get is that, you know, there's a space that's the door to the train room, and it's a dark space when the doors close, but that's a space most modelers wouldn't fill. Yet I'm going to have a well-detailed interior of a power plant there, which is something you don't see on many model railroads. And we're going to look at this in another episode, but another use of good space. That'll be when we look at Sycamoose. But so the coal cars go through the dumper here, and they're the short track, runs up to a bumper, and I have a detector right here that detects the cars. Eventually there will be signals, either dwarf or on a tower, right here that'll light up red or yellow when they, probably red, when the cars pass it to tell me that, you know, you're about to hit the end of the track. Taking a quick last look at Pearson City, I didn't have a chance yet to cover the kits that I used in the scenes. So the first one here, which is the Walters Merchants Row number 1. That I kit bashed. That's the only kit that was actually used there, other than the foam board I used and the light poles and people and stuff that didn't come with it. And the scales was a Walters scales kit. The one that they have has 2 sets of scales in it you get to choose from, and I used the other up on the Sutton level, and so I still had one of the buildings left over, which worked out. You would generally have a scale where the coal is being used to make sure the same amount of coal that left the mine made it to the customer so they didn't get ripped off. The crossing lights, these are the cheap little buggers from China. Somewhere someone's groaning, buy American, I know, but you know, I buy what I can afford. They came with their own controller, and all I have them on is a toggle switch to flip them on or off. Continuing on, if we look over here at Pierson Station itself, this was an older Walters kit. It was, I believe, the Warwolf. I can't say it for nothing. Anyway, I kit bashed it, but it's really the only kit that's used there. It's a beautiful kit. I've been thinking about trying to get that kit for another project somewhere else, but I'm so running out of space. I really enjoyed that one. That was really nice. The dump house that we see here, that is a Pike Stuff single engine shed. And that, for the most part, counts the Pearson City, short of the power plant that is downstairs still on the workbench. But for that, I used the Walters, I think it was the car shop that I used. I used it over in Pierson Yard as well for the engine shed. And it was just one kit. On the engine sheds in Pierson Yard, we'll take a look at that in the next video. I used 2 of them to create that. So we're going to wrap the video up. It got awful long compared to what I wanted it to, surprisingly. I don't know how that happens to me. I talk too much apparently. Anyway, so real quickly I wanted to tell you that this video is split into 2 parts, part 1 and part 2. And there will be other episodes coming out. If they get long, I guess we'll split them too. But I want you to keep an eye out for our Phantom Hobbies. Yeah, that little company I run, or tiny business, where we make 3D printed maintenance away equipment, prime movers, and little trucks and stuff. In fact, we have a tiny one here that isn't even available yet, but it is one of the ones I'm working on lately. But we're going to have a big contest coming up, and we're going to announce that in the, not the next video or the second half of this, but it'll be the first half of the Pierson shops. We're going to announce that video. So keep an eye and stay tuned, and you'll get told how you're going to be able to win some pretty cool stuff from Phantom Hobbies. Well, thank you very much for watching, and have a great model rating day.